everyone's favorite knucklehead, Max Kellerman, Max, creatine, do something, get involved, take a walk. Let's see what Max has to say about Stephen Jones's remarks about Dak remaining part of the team's future.
In the long run, it maybe even works out for them because the Cowboys weren't going anywhere this year that they may not be going otherwise. Like, in other words, someone's got to win the NFC East. I think it probably will be the Cowboys because everyone else is terrible. And then once they get to the playoffs, they ain't winning any games. So that's the same with Andy Dalton or Dak Prescott or whomever. This year's a wash. But next year, I'll bet you Dak is much more amenable and his agent to signing the kind of deal the Cowboys would want them to sign.
What? Max, I don't know the full context of this. It's just a 6-minute clip. Dak Prescott is still in the surgery room, and Max Kellerman is already looking at the Dallas Cowboys books, telling me how this is a win-win for the Cowboys because they can get Dak at a cheaper contract. What the hell, Max?
And Stephen A., if that's not as long a term deal for quite as much money, that's the risk you take by playing on a franchise tag instead of signing that deal. I don't see why they wouldn't. Like, Andy Dalton's a nice quarterback. He's a starting caliber quarterback for a lot of his career. He's considered a solid middle-class franchise quarterback. And Dak already is considered something a little more than that, if not quite elite. They're going to start playing the NFC East pretty soon, more and more, and they're probably going to win some of those games. And hey,
how about the camera angle they got on Max? They got him up here. Can they help my guy out a little bit? They have his neck up. Like Stephen A. Like, look at the difference in these two shots. Ugh.
Andy Dalton looks okay, but the Cowboys know Dak is better than Andy Dalton. They realize they're going to have to pay a premium eventually.
What's he looking at?
And I think now Dak and his agent probably realize
what are you looking at?
Probably sign the next $100 million deal we get offered, or whatever the multiple-year deal that the Cowboys will offer is. Yeah, I believe Stephen Jones thinks that they want Dak Prescott, and now also believes they're not going to have to pay through.
This doesn't make any sense to me with Dak and the future, the Cowboys' future, whatever. If the Cowboys, obviously Dak was not part of the Cowboys' future plans. If the Cowboys did not offer Dak or did not sign Dak to a long-term deal, so why now that he's injured, a gruesome injury, which we have no idea of his recovery, or we have no idea of the timetable, why now after the injury would he be part of their future plans? Now, obviously, I understand the idea that, like, he has to say this, he has to kind of put this kind of stuff out there, but I don't think there's any truth to this. I think Dallas is prepared for life after Dak, and honestly, I think Dak is prepared for life after Dallas. I think that's closer to what these two parties should be doing. Dallas should say, yes, this season's a wash. Let's not worry about whatever. Let's just let Andy Dalton do our thing. What do we do next year? Do we go try and make a trade? Do we sign somebody? Do we trade up in the draft to draft somebody? Is this the time to rebuild both our coaches, both our quarterback, both our direction, whatever? I think that's closer to what Dallas should be doing than saying, yeah, let's just wait for Dak, and then we'll sign Dak to a long-term deal, and then we'll go from there. That makes no sense to me. If anything, if we're going to say anything and be kind of like, be a little less than empathetic towards it, is this may get Dallas off the hook easier as far as like explaining why they moved on from Dak.
Through the teeth, through the nose, quite like they were going to have to.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, not paying through the nose like they thought they were going to have to. And that's the relevancy here, Max Kellerman. Nobody wants to hear you bloviate about ignoring market value. Market value does matter. In other words, of course, $100 million is a lot of money. Of course, $30 million a year is a lot of money. We're talking about in comparison to the other quarterbacks that they would get paid.
I think Dak Prescott, honestly, Prescott is close to like a top, on top of my head, he's probably like a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. And when you think about how important quarterback is, I don't think it's crazy to pay Dak whatever, $100 million or $30 million a year, whatever it is. He's better than Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is paid a lot. Like, this stuff happens. I mean, Dak now this is obviously the injury plays into it. I don't know what he's going to look like afterwards. But up until this point in Dak's career, for what it's worth, I think Dak is right around that top 5, top 6 area of quarterback. And I can already see people commenting and typing in the comment section. But if you go and look at Dak and his efficiency numbers and all of that, there is no reason to think that he's anywhere underneath 6, 7, somewhere in there. Top 8 at the absolute worst. So to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you can just look around at, I don't know, the Giants. I don't know, the Redskins. Teams in their division to say, man, I don't want to be that shit. I don't want to be a franchise that has no quarterback, have no clue what's going on. I don't want to be forced like the Bears to pay a king's ransom for Nick Foles while I have my guy, while I have a marketable, good quarterback. Why don't I sign him? I don't know why they didn't sign Dak in the offseason. I thought it was weird. And for them to turn around and sign him now would be weird.
It wasn't like Dak Prescott never got offered anything. He got offered money. We understand that reality. But I hearken you back to the early 90s. The Dallas Cowboys have won a Super Bowl championship. And Jerry Jones decides, even though he had paid Michael Irvin, and even though he had paid Troy Aikman, and even though he had paid a plethora of other dudes, it was Emmitt Smith that he was deciding to play hardball with. Now, he had offered Emmitt Smith a pretty good deal, but Emmitt Smith knew that at the time, he was one of the top 2 running backs in all of football, plus he was a reigning, defending Super Bowl champion, and he deserved his money. Ultimately, the Dallas Cowboys lose the first 2 games of the season with Jimmy Johnson coaching. Jimmy Johnson, post-game, throws up his hands, but not a word comes out of his mouth because he's basically saying, I need my guy. I'm frustrated, without verbalizing those words specifically. Jerry Jones ultimately signs Emmitt Smith. And if we can go back to the archives, you will go back and you will see that press conference when Jerry Jones and Emmitt Smith is sitting next to one another. Emmitt Smith at the time was paid the highest contract for a running back in football, and he looked absolutely positively furious. Why? Why? Because he was kept waiting, and you chose him to play hardball with. That is relevant when I bring up Tony Romo.
I have no clue what we're talking about right now. I've been waiting for there to be a point or something. I don't know what the fuck we're talking about right here.
Who had comparable stats to a Dak Prescott, and even with 1 playoff win in 9 years as a quarterback or 8 years as a quarterback, you pay him $108 million, the highest paid contract in the history of the Dallas Cowboys franchise, and the man didn't do anything compared to what a Dak Prescott does. We fast forward to last summer. We saw Jalen Smith, we saw DeMarcus Lawrence, we saw a host of other Dallas Cowboys taking care of. You yourself were sitting right across from me, all right, in studio prior to the pandemic, and even you.
I think what he's saying here, he's trying to get to, is if you're Dak, why you're probably wondering why of all people and that's kind of what I was saying, is that of all the people, why Dak? Why is Dak the one where you're I'm not paying him? Why? He's a quarterback. Look, I've explained this with Joe Burrow. Being relevant really, really matters, especially for the Cowboys. The Cowboys cannot go back to the Chad Henne or Drew Henson days and all that. They can't go back to that. They can't go back to the shuffling of quarterbacks and Chad Hutchinson and all these players where no one knows who the hell the Cowboys are. The Cowboys are garbage. Dak Prescott being on the Cowboys makes them relevant. It makes Monday Night Football games more relevant. Sunday Night Football primetime, they're always exciting to watch, even if they're 8-8, 9-7. So why choose Dak? Of all the positions, I've been on record saying that I think Dallas should have forked up money for Dak way before they forked up money for Ezekiel Elliott. Running backs come and go. But to find a quarterback, a stable quarterback, a good quarterback, a young quarterback, and a guy like Dak who has a unique skill set, I don't understand why they didn't pay him and what the problem was with him. Really at all. I don't know why they kept tagging him or they were so hard up to tag him. I think that's what Stephen A is going to get at.
Knowledge. There's a whole host of people that Jerry Jones is taking care of wearing a Dallas Cowboy uniform, but not the quarterback. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about here. Everything ain't just about dollars and cents. It's how you handle it.
You just said you just said a whole lot, and it's making the opposite point, I think, that you think it's making. First of all, Emmitt Smith. Dak Prescott's not the Emmitt Smith of quarterbacks.
I know exactly
Emmitt Smith
what I'm
was
saying.
absolutely elite. If there's no Barry Sanders, he'd have been clearly the best running back in the world.
It's also like so different. You know, like that's an era where the running back was the most important position in the NFL. Now the quarterback is the most important position in the NFL, and it's not even close. And quarterbacks are getting record money. And this is something else, guys, that I got to harping on when it comes to NHL or NFL salaries. If you're Dak Prescott, and you sign a 5-year deal for, let's just say, a 5-year or $250 million. No, that's too much. $150 million, and you're making $30 million a year. You have to expect that in 5 years, contracts are going to go up. They're only always going to go up, just like the Patrick Mahomes deal. Patrick Mahomes' deal is actually a really, really good deal for the Chiefs because they don't have to worry about what it's going to look like the next time there's a collective bargaining agreement, the next time a new TV deal comes through. You don't know what salary is going to look like in the next 10 years, 5 years. The NFL is only growing. It is the biggest, most prosperous sporting league in America. So the idea that like, wow, $30 million a year is a whole lot for a quarterback. Is it? Is $30 million a year going to be a whole lot for a quarterback in 5 years? I don't think it is. So if you can lock these guys up for anything close to market value now, do it.
World. That's not Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's not a top 5 quarterback. All the numbers he's putting up notwithstanding. And yet, they're paying him without resetting the market, which, by the way, he wasn't going to do in a world with Patrick Mahomes. They're paying him in line with the elite quarterbacks. They offered him an elite quarterback contract, which he turned down, period. If you think that
I don't get the elite. I don't get where it's like he's not an elite quarterback. Says who? You know, like who is elite? Who are the elite quarterbacks? Who is even the next set of elite quarterbacks? Like who are his peers? Where is he at? Where do they think Dak is at? Because I don't understand how it's like you can only pay elite quarterbacks. In my opinion, if you have an above average quarterback, it's so important to have a quarterback. Pay them whatever the hell they want. Just get a quarterback. Get a guy. There are so many teams in the NFL who I guarantee you have been sitting in below average nothingness for 10 years who it's like, God, I would kill for an above average quarterback. I would kill for the 8th best quarterback in the NFL. And if the 8th best quarterback in the NFL is not elite, whatever. Because it's such a quarterback-driven league. If you're the 8th best quarterback, you're probably a playoff team, and you're probably guaranteeing playoff berths for your team, and that's well worth whatever contract they've got.
Because they wanted to hold him for years.
More than Dak Prescott, fine. What's that got to do with anything?
Because they wanted to hold him for 5 years.
Yes, they wanted to.
When have you seen Jerry Jones and them do
right.
that? Because you want 4 years, not 5.
Actually,
we ain't gonna give it to you.
You have to be. See, when you talk about you're lying to the American people, you know full well what agents are trying to do now. They're trying to get in on increased salary cap that they project is coming up.
It is.
So now a lot of agents want slightly shorter contracts so they can cash in now and
That's exactly what I just said. Why wouldn't they be doing that? That's the agent's job. The agent's job is to tell their player, hey, man, look, in 5 years, we're probably going to have a new salary cap. We're probably going to have a new collective bargaining agreement. We're probably going to have a new TV deal. So we got to be really judicious about these 5-6 year deals because that last year, you could be costing yourself $60, $70, $80 million. That's their whole job. That's the whole point. So if you're Dak Prescott and you know that shit's happening, yeah, why the hell would? That's a huge difference. The difference between 1 year or a 4-year deal and a 5-year deal right there could honestly be somewhere around $100 million, being able to sign that second contract. So, yeah, of course. That should make it. I don't understand how they can be like, well, why wouldn't he take the deal? His agent's doing this. His agent's doing that. Yeah, that's it. So if you're Dallas, what you should do in return is say, okay, we understand that you're taking a bit of a risk here by us signing you through that next plateau of deals. So we're going to give you a little bit more money to make up for the speculation of what probably will be there in 5 years. That sounds completely reasonable to me.
Cash in.
Yesterday.
Right. Okay, so since you know that, then you also know why the Dallas Cowboys wanted cost certainty going forward and why Dak's agent was pushing against that. But
I'm
the
not
bottom
talking about
line
what
is
they wanted.
They offered him the Carson Wentz, Jared Goff deal.
I'm not talking about what
And he's way better than Goff and Wentz.
they wanted. I'm talking about what they refused to settle for when it came to their quarterbacks. There are a multitude of instances throughout Jerry Jones's history when if he had a personal affection for you, guess what? He would acquiesce to certain things. All I'm saying is that did not happen with Dak Prescott. You sent your quarterback out there on a one-year deal. On a one-year deal. You're going to bring him back on a one-year deal.
Smart.
I'm saying there are a multitude of instances where we
right,
looked
fellas.
at players that have
Spicy
played
out
for
the
Jerry
gate.
Jones.
I like
He
it.
didn't do that.
I don't know what these two were talking about. They weren't talking about anything. Thank God y'all have my videos and my stuff to listen to. And I mean, I think Dallas, just to put this all into perspective, I think that Dak was well in his realm to ask for more money for a contract that was going to go through the next wave of salary cap bumps and all that. I think Dallas is off the hook of Dak Prescott now. It makes absolutely no sense for them to not want him before, but want him now. I think the best thing to do for both sides is let Dak test out free agency, get his big check, move on. Let Dallas figure out who they want their next quarterback to be, whether it's Trevor Lawrence, whether it's someone like that, where I'm sure Jerry would love that. You know, trade up in the draft, do a king's ransom, get your guy, move forward, whatever. Do you? I mean, this is the Dallas Cowboys. You know, if the Dallas Cowboys wanted to, I'm sure they could put a trade on the table to go get whoever, the Justin Herberts or the Tuas or the Joe Burrows of the world. I mean, everything's on the table. So I think that these two are going to make a clean break, no pun intended, and I think we've seen the last of Dak in Dallas.